We're switching gears on this overview to look over an old video game adaptation. No, not that one. It turns out that a pair of OVAs were made in Japan in the mid-90s, and ADV combined them into a single movie that predates the Paramount films. Strange, isn't it? The movie is set in Planet Freedom, a world divided into two layers. The continents floating up above make up the land of the sky, while the dark, post-apocalyptic surface below makes up the land of darkness. Our heroes, Sonic and Tails, are enjoying some fun in the sun in the land of the sky when their longtime nemesis, Dr. Robotnik, interrupts with an uncharacteristic plea for aid. A sinister mechanical double by the name of Metal Robotnik has seized control of his domain in the land of darkness and set a critical generator to overload, and now Sonic and Tails are the only ones fast enough to race through the land of darkness, break into Metal Robotnik's headquarters, and shut down the generator before its explosion endangers the world. But can Dr. Robotnik's story be trusted? And what role does this mysterious robotic copy of Sonic play in all of this? Wow, the world of this OVA differed a lot from the games up to this point. We see a planet composed of two terrestrial layers, the wreckage of modern society litters both surfaces, there's a population of elfin, or are they animalistic, humanoids, and the Chaos Emeralds aren't mentioned at all, just to name a few points. Given that the OVAs were initially released in 1996, only 5 years into the life of the franchise, this was probably an early attempt at world building that ultimately never took off. And as much as I've enjoyed the lore of the games over the years, I do wonder how they would have developed if they'd used this movie as a foundation. But while the world might be different, the tone still matches the classic games perfectly. Each environment possesses its own vivid color palette, the soundtrack is full of upbeat, jazzy music, that sounds pretty similar to what we hear in Sonic's CD, come to think of it. There are plenty of references to the game sprinkled around, and the plot manages a fine balance of gravity and levity. The story gets serious without being grim or dour, and the humor breaks the tension without undermining the more emotional moments. The animation is on point as well. This movie displays plenty of hallmarks of the 90s anime aesthetic. Angular environmental designs, solid, chunky machines and vehicles, and a sense of roughness and texture in the visuals that you just don't see these days. Granted, there are a few shortcomings at times. The animation is stilted during the quiet scenes, the animators recycle footage here and there, and there are moments when they just move a still image around a background. But those flaws just make the action scenes much more dynamic in contrast, and the visuals still wrap up the story in a way that just feels right for a Sonic adaptation. It also helps in no small way that the central characters are true to form. Sonic's more laid back and abrasive here than in the games, but he's still the brash, cocky young hero who won't back down. Tails is still the loyal friend and sidekick with a heart of gold and a talent for tech, and Knuckles rounds out the trio with his serious attitude and focused mindset. It's a little odd to see him as a wandering treasure hunter instead of the Master Emerald's guardian, though, and the movie also labels him a mole instead of an echidna, although that could just be Sarah's mistake. Just a couple more instances of what could have been, I suppose. I do miss that hat, though. I'd love to see it in the games at least once. Characterization is on point for the villainous side as well. Dr. Robotnik, or Eggman if you prefer the Japanese script, is every bit the bombastic mad scientist he is in the games, and he invests an over-the-top glee in nearly everything he does, hyping up his inventions, laying out his schemes, gloating over his perceived victories, proposing to the president's daughter. Wait, what? But as comical as he is, his evil genius is still responsible for the greater threats in this world. And without giving too much away, his boisterous malevolence is reflected in his metallic doppelganger. Speaking of robot duplicates, Metal Sonic, or Hyper Metal Sonic according to the script, is at his most threatening in this appearance, and he single-handedly shifts the movie into a much darker tone the moment he shows up. Most incarnations of the character in the classic games exist as bosses or elite minions that players could defeat after learning the attack patterns. In this movie, however, he's effectively a Terminator with Sonic's speed, and he is every bit as dangerous as that combination suggests. When his objective escalates to the point of global destruction, it takes a concerted effort from multiple characters just for the real Sonic to stand a chance. He hasn't appeared in the live-action movies thus far, but I hope they use this version for reference if he does in the future. The supporting cast is small, and they serve primarily as comic relief. Old Man Owl is a cheerfully scatterbrained helper, and the president seems good-hearted enough, even if he is a bit of a buffoon. His daughter, Sarah, is surprisingly well-rounded for a one-off character. She's every bit the spoiled teenage daughter from the outset, but she cares very strongly about Sonic and his friends. And while she's clearly out of her league in any serious confrontation, she's not afraid to jump into danger when the situation calls for it. I would have liked to see her appear again in more of the franchise's installments. You know, I actually enjoyed both the Japanese and English audio to an equal degree. The Japanese voice acting maintains a more consistent quality throughout the movie, while ADV's dub has more distinctive elements. Sonic and Tails sound like they're dealing with congestion, the line reads are more overly emphatic at times, and there are hints of odd accents popping up here and there. Slight British for Sonic and Eastern European for Robotnik, to be specific. That being said, I actually found the English audio to be superior in a few respects. Old Man Owl has more energy in his performance, Robotnik's more delightfully hammy, and Sarah's voice actress really plays up her temperamental nature. Overall, this is one of those cases where both tracks made for good listening. That is a good question. ADV released the English version in 1999, and while VHS tapes and DVDs exist, they are sadly out of print. If you already have your own copy, keep a strong hold on it. Otherwise, be prepared to pay a hefty price through the second-hand market. But if those options aren't available, I'm sure that enterprising individuals can find other ways to watch it. Whatever viewing option you choose, it makes for a fun hour-long adventure for casual viewers. And fans of the franchise will appreciate the faithful tone, the references to the classic games, and the fast-paced action. This is most definitely a shelf-worthy installment.